So you're talking to a friend and he says to you, hey, I got to tell you about this awesome new health drink I just learned about. It's so amazing. It fixes all sorts of things that can be wrong with you. It fixes pretty much everything. Makes you feel so much more energetic and stronger and gets you in better shape just almost magically. It's just so awesome. You won't even believe it. And you say, oh, okay, it sounds pretty cool. I'd like to know more about it. Have you ever tried it? Like, what were your results? And your friend says, no, I haven't tried it, but I really, really want to. It's like, okay, well, do you know other people who've tried it? Yeah, I know a few. Okay, and what were their results? Well, they all died, but you got to try it. It's so good. I've read all about it. It sounds awesome. Wait, time out. They all died? Like in totally unrelated ways while they were trying it? Well, no, it seems to have been a direct result from drinking this health thing, but you got to read about it. It sounds so cool. It sounds so awesome and so healthy, and like it's going to fix everything. Wait a minute, time out. They all died. They died. They drank it and they frickin' died, and you're saying that it sounds so great when you read about it. How did they die? What did it actually do? What were the actual results of drinking this thing? Oh, don't get into that. They did it wrong or something. They took too much or too little or just whatever. But you got to read about it. You got to read about it and you'll understand it's just the greatest thing ever. You got to try it. That is what it sounds like to me when I talk to socialists. Because socialists, when they listen to some bozo like Bernie saying free healthcare and free education and free this and free that, they say, wow, that sounds so wonderful and sounds so awesome, and everything will be free and awesome, and we'll all be equal and prosperous and skipping about, tossing flowers in the air, it'll be utopia. And I say, wait a minute, you do realize, I hope, maybe you don't because most Americans are totally ignorant, you do realize that tens of millions of people died under socialist regimes. And I don't mean from war, I mean from their own government killing them. Don't you sort of have some curiosity about why that happened? Do you know why that happened? Can you explain why that happened? Don't read it and say, this sounds so great, we're all equal, and we care for the sick and the poor and the elderly, and everything turns out wonderfully, and ignore the fact that those very same ideas, pitched with the very same sales pitch to people in different countries all over the world, resulted in millions and millions of people dying. I'd like you to sort of, before you tell me how awesome socialism is, understand and convey to me why it went so frickin' horribly wrong over there. Don't just say, well, they did it wrong, but you gotta try it. What do you mean they did it wrong? What did they do wrong? How did it end up like that? And why would us trying it here not end up the same way? It's like, don't tell me this health drink sounds so awesome and amazing and it'll fix everything about you. Never mind the fact that everybody I know who tried it died. They frickin' died. No, you got to read about it. Because it sounds so good when you read the words on paper. That's what socialism is. When applied to real life, when applied to actual humanity in the real world, it results in lots and lots of people suffering and dying. It results in the most oppressive, murderous regimes in the history of the world. Don't you kind of want to know why before you're going to push the same stupid ideas? Or is it enough for you that, gee, the commercial sounds nice? Never mind the track record of death and destruction. Tens of millions of dead people. Never mind that. It sounds so good on paper. And it sounds so good when Uncle Bernie tells me about all the free stuff I'm going to get. Get your head out of your butt long enough to learn what actually happened in the real world when these lovely sounding, compassionate, fair, equal ideas were actually put into practice by governments around the world. See if this sounds familiar. Citizens of the USSR, that's the Soviet Union. Half of American teenagers probably don't know what that was. Citizens of the USSR have the right to work, that is, are guaranteed the right to employment and payment for their work in accordance with its quantity and quality. Oh, that's awesome. We all, full employment. We have a right to work. We have a right to a living wage, and we have a right to be paid, blah, blah. It sounds so awesome. Citizens of the USSR have the right to rest and leisure. And so, among other things, we're going to have the institution of annual vacations with full pay for workers and employees. You get to go on vacation and they have to pay you while you're not working. Citizens of the USSR have the right to maintenance in old age and also in case of sickness or loss of capacity to work. That's so awesome. If you're sick, if you're injured, if you're old, whatever, the government will take care of you. They will lovingly take care of you. This right to be maintained in old age and sickness and all that is ensured by the extensive development of social insurance of workers and employees at state expense, free medical service for the working people, and the provision of a wide network of health resorts for the use of the working people. Government will take care of you. Also, citizens of the USSR have the right to education. This right is ensured by universal compulsory elementary education, by education including higher education being free of charge, by the system of state stipends for the overwhelming majority of students in the universities and colleges, free healthcare, free education, a guaranteed job, a living wage. It'll be awesome. And then tens of millions of people fucking died. Do you care? Why? Will you pull your head out of your ass long enough to figure out why this? And I was just reading from the Constitution, the original Constitution of the Soviet Union. That was the sales pitch. It's right in their stinking Constitution. The result under Stalin and Lenin was tens of millions of dead people. Do you even care why? Or does it just sound so wonderful and lovely? Free education, free healthcare, free this, free that you don't give a shit that tens of millions of people died. By the way, I don't have to go through the same thing with the Constitution of the People's Republic of China because it was modeled almost directly after the Soviet Constitution. Little rewordings here and there, all of the same stuff. Free this, free that, free the other thing. 42 million people died under Mao's lovely communist utopia and his great leap forward and all these great government programs and all this free stuff. Do you care? Do you care, or do you just think the commercial sounds so nice that you're going to cheer for it and ignore the tens of millions of dead people that were a direct result of this stupid socialist bullshit? Do you care? If you're actually a compassionate person and you care about the elderly and the sick and the yada yada yada, do you want them to frickin' die? And if not, are you going to take the time to find out what actually happened in Red China and the Soviet Union? What actually happened when they implemented these plans? Because you just heard the sales pitch and it sounds exactly like what Bernie talks about and the other open socialists. Free this, that, or the other thing. How could that possibly go wrong? Do you actually want to know how it could possibly go wrong? Because the history is pretty damn clear. You can look it up. You can look up the laws they passed. You can look up the real world results of having a government central master plan with central planning forcing everything on everybody and giving everybody free stuff and taking care of them. Do you even care that tens of millions of people died? Or are you so determined to do the virtue signaling thing that you want to go out there and say, I want free stuff for people? Yay! That doesn't make you compassionate if the end result is vast oppression and murder. And the end result of socialism over and over and over again has been oppression and murder. And I bet you have no stinking idea why. If you vote Democrat, if you're a Bernie supporter, I bet you have no freaking idea how these lovely idealistic ideas ended with mass murder, with these giant violent authoritarian regimes under Mao and Stalin and Lenin and Castro, and it's not, those are the biggest two, the biggest body counts, but it's been all over the place. Socialism and communism have been tried all over the place with horrendously destructive results. Do you know why? If you're a socialist and you come to me, this sounds great, listen to what Bernie says, this is so awesome, we need this. If you're not even aware of what those exact ideas have led to in the past, and if you don't have some explanation of why that happened, and some explanation of why you think it magically wouldn't this time around, even though that's pretty much how it always goes. And yeah, sometimes it's more authoritarian than other times, but it's always controlled, and the quality of everything always goes down under communism. Marx even explained that. You don't really create wealth under communism. You have to let free trade do that, and then you take it over and steal it and redistribute it all over the place. Do you not care how these things actually happen? Look it up. Just look up a video about Mao's Great Leap Forward. See what it actually did. And there's a bunch of really good ones. They're only 10, 20 minutes long that will show you what this loving, compassionate central planning from an authoritarian ruling class actually created, what actually happened, why millions of people starved, and why others were shot and violently oppressed and sent off to the gulag and all sorts of nasty stuff. If this was an original idea, like, oh, it's the first time anybody's ever pitched this thing, we're going to call it socialism, everybody gets free stuff, you would already have to be economically ignorant to fall for it. You'd already have to basically be thinking like a child. Oh, good, the teacher's going to give us all free stuff, and be so clueless that, wait, it doesn't occur to you how they're going to pay for that? They're taking it from you. Government doesn't produce anything of wealth. If they're giving you free stuff, they're stealing it from you or somebody else through violence. That's the only way they have anything to give away, is stealing it from somebody else or stealing it from you. That's if this was the first time it was ever tried. It's not. There's a massive, many decades long history of the horrendous violence and oppression and death that came from these misrepresented ideas that sound like compassion and caring. And if you really don't bother finding out what happened before and then having some explanation for why it happened and some argument for why it wouldn't this time around, then why should anybody take you seriously? Why should I believe you're at all compassionate or give a crap about your fellow man when you are advocating exactly the mentality and the philosophy that's gotten tens of millions of people killed? Why is that any better than somebody saying, Heil Hitler, I'm a Nazi, hooray for National Fascism? I mean, National Socialism, fascism, what else? Whatever else. But don't worry, it won't be oppressive this time. This time it'll be lovely and caring and everybody will be free and happy. No, you'd say, what? No, Nazism is a really bad idea. Look what it actually did. How about you apply the same frickin' thing to socialism? It's a really bad idea. Look what it actually does in the real world. And then people will throw out the things that they think they know about, over in Scandinavia and stuff like that, and they're notoriously ignorant about what's actually going on. But let's use just the two biggest examples of socialism that have ever been tried in the history of the world and the tens of millions of dead people. If you can't explain that, if you haven't even bothered to look into that, what does that say about you and your intentions? Are you really so determined to sound loving and caring that you're out there promoting, let's give free stuff to everybody, without bothering to check on why have these lovely, kind, and generous ideas killed millions of people? If you don't even care enough to go find out what happened, and you can find it out, the history of every step of it, and the legislation, the laws that passed, or programs that were passed, Mao's Great Leap Forward, the whole thing, you can look it up and learn all about it, and you can see what socialism does in the real world when government administers and imposes it on the population. And if you're not even bothering to do that, you're just blabbing stuff you know nothing about to feel better about yourself, which is exactly what all the people who cheered for Mao did. It's exactly what all the people who cheered for Stalin did. This sounds so fair and great, and heck with those evil rich people. Now it's going to be fair for the workers, and we're all going to be yada, yada, yada. You're all going to be oppressed, and half of you are going to be killed. And you don't even show any curiosity as to why that happened. What does that say about you? that you're pushing an idea that's killed that many frickin' people and you don't even bother to find out why? Good Lord. And I know this is coming from people's goodness and their virtue. A massive amount of ignorance, but, well, I care about people, so I like the idea of people getting free stuff. Well, have a little bit more depth to your thinking and your understanding of reality to say, wait, this sounds kind of too good to be true. Everybody gets free stuff? How does that work? And what might go wrong? And you don't even have to theorize that hard. You can look at history and see what went wrong with socialism over and over again. But if you won't even look, if you are so focused on wanting to sound compassionate and loving by cheering for Bernie, that's really bad. That's really damn bad. You may have the best of intentions, but just like the people who cheered for Mao and the people who cheered for Stalin, you are cheering for something that is immoral, anti-human, and horrendously destructive and evil. And the fact that your good intentions were tricked into cheering for that isn't going to change the outcome. Good people in China cheered for Mao. Good people in Russia cheered for Stalin. And then they got the real world results of collectivism. And if you don't understand why that happened, first of all, if you don't even know that it happened, or you know it happened but you're kind of ignoring that and you don't really want to bother finding out why it happened, you're not being honest to yourself and you're not being honest to anybody else. Before you cheer for socialism, go find out what it actually does in the real world and why. And then you'll stop cheering for socialism.